Storm-tossed rain battered the eaves of the lonely Transylvanian cabin as the midwinter night pressed in. Theme-side, twin brothers stood before a flickering tallow candle on a scarred oak table, their identical faces drawn tight with shock. The taller of the two, Merrick, clutched his brother's hand, as though afraid it might vanish. His other hand pressed to his temple, fingers trembling. Across the room, the wind moaned through a cracked window pane, carrying a whisper that seemed both distant and intimate. One soul in two vessels. The smaller twin, Stefan, inhaled sharply, his eyes widening with recognition. He lifted a hand to his own head, as if bracing against invisible forces. Their shared gaze, fixed on the wavering flame, spoke of a revelation beyond speech. At that instant, a sudden wave of pain struck Merrick and Stefan in unison, spasms that twisted their limbs and blurred their vision. The candle flickered, casting their long shadows on the cabin walls, where one silhouette melded into the other. As the pain ebbed, Merrick's voice broke the stunned silence. "Do you feel it?" Stefan's breath caught before he nodded, voice trembling. "It's as if I'm you and you are me." Behind them, the air chilled and the candle flame guttered. A third, spectral voice seemed to emerge from the dark corners, neither Merrick's nor Stefan's, but hauntingly familiar. "Vida una, anima in duobus." As the final words echoed, the twins' features contorted with both awe and dread, and their single doubled voice rose in unison. In that moment it became clear that Merrick and Stefan had bound their fates together, and in doing so had awakened something ancient and inexorable within their shared soul. Before we step into the shadows of 1778 Transylvania, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Then tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. Tonight we unravel the chilling saga of Merrick and Stefan, twin brothers who discovered they shared one soul and stumbled into a dark pact that defied nature itself. Over the next century, their story was whispered as a cautionary legend of dual consciousness, haunted graves, and a binding ritual that no living person should repeat. Stay with us as we trace every heartbeat and every echo that binds two bodies to a single tormented spirit. Nestled between fog-shrouded peaks of the eastern Carpathians, lay the village of Volea Negra, a cluster of timber cottages ringed by thorny hawthorn hedges and crumbling stone walls. In 1778, the highlands were a world apart, cut off from imperial roads by knee-deep snow 6 months of the year. Smoke curled from steep thatch roofs at dawn, carrying the pungent scent of pine resin and wood smoke. Life here moved to the rhythm of seasons, spring's lambing cries, summer's relentless haymaking, autumn's harvest feasts, and winter's hush of frost and prayer. The villagers were hardy folk, shepherds in woolen kappas, charcoal burners coaxing fire from green wood, weavers turning hemp into coarse cloth. They tilled slender strips of dark earth on terraced hills, and tended goats that burrowed under hawthorn in blizzards. Their parish church, built of river stone beneath an ancient yew, was the heart of every rite. Christenings, weddings, funerals, and the twice-yearly blessing of fields with holy water brushed from bone-handled aspergilla. It was here, on All Souls' Eve, that Anna and Petrush Urban welcomed a miracle and a curse. Their firstborn, a boy named Merrick, arrived with a single strong cry that echoed in the hushed chapel as the priest intoned vespers. Less than an hour later, when the church bells tolled midnight, a second cry split the night air. The midwife, Goda, felt the air shiver as she lifted the wailing infant from his mother's arms and found, navel-pressed and pink, a second son, Steph. No simpler birth, no easier twin in that age of perilous deliveries. Their arrival was greeted with blessings and whispered awe. 2 lives from one womb, a promise of doubled labor and doubled joy. Yet the villagers spoke in uneasy tones. Old Irina, keeper of herb lore, crossed herself 3 times and spat to the west. The mountain's heart births souls in pairs, she muttered, but the land barely holds one. 2 burdens, 2 fates. She marked the twins' cradle with a sprig of wolfsbane and tied onion skins at each corner. From their first days, Marek and Stefan were inseparable. They fed from the same breast, slept under the same blanket, and clutched each other's tiny fists as if drawn by an unseen cord. Neighbors noted that when Marek cried, Stefan's slumber rolled into restless fits and vice versa. When Marek's brow glowed with fever, Stefan burned with the same heat. At the hour of each high sea's stiff veil of snow, both infants would wail in perfect, echoing chorus, summoning hushed footsteps of midwives and mothers from every cottage. By midwinter, the twins could sit propped on linen pillows, heads swaying in unison, eyes fixed on their mother's face. When Anna hummed shepherd's carols, they imitated each note, though speech was far beyond their mind. "Listen," Petru said, one dawn, steam rising from his breath. They learned before walking, but his pride trembled in his chest, for in every straining note, he felt a weight older than the forest, as if the mountains themselves sang through his son. Their earliest omen came when Anna tended a flickering hearth fire. She tossed in dried rose hips to soothe Marek's first tooth-breaking fever, and the sparks leapt high, painting the log walls with dancing silhouettes. As she fed Stefan his broth, the twins spoke a single word together, soft and wavering. "Coach, coach, coach." Anna froze, spoon halfway to her lips. No one owned a coach in Valea Negra, at best a cart with rusty wheel. She exchanged a fearful glance with Goda, whose breath caught at the hearth's roar. "A sign," the midwife hissed. "A visitor from beyond." Days later, a stranger arrived, a princely emissary riding a black stallion, his cloak trimmed in sable, face hidden beneath a velvet hood. He sought shelter at Petru Sherban's hearth. By the twins' cradle he paused, drawing a silver cane carved with twin spirals. He studied Marek and Stefan, lips moving behind the hood as if chanting. The boys watched, pale eyes reflecting candlelight. The emissary's fingers brushed Marek's cheek, just once, and both infants shivered. No breath stirred their nostrils. Then he strode into the night, leaving hoofprints in the snow and an unsettled hush in every heart. That evening, the village elder, Veselil blacksmith, gathered the men under the yew beside the chapel. "2 souls in one womb," he intoned, voice low as hammer on iron. "The mountain spirits do not abide such gift. We must watch the twins for portents, bless them with salt and ash." The gathered nodded, stamping boots on frozen ground. They pledged watches by the cave-lidded springs, and young women cast woven crosses of willow before each cottage door. Through those winter nights, ghosts whispered in the wind. Shepherds found sheep trampled in circular patterns, goats huddled in angular pens as if guided by unseen hands. In the twins' nursery, toys rearranged themselves, wooden horses lined heel to mane, cloth dolls forming concentric rings. Anna wept, pressing rosemary to Marek's brow and mint to Stefan's, praying their herbs would guard their souls from mountain darkness. When spring thaw came, deliveries of milk and wool from the Sherban homestead doubled. 2 boys who needed not only their mother's milk, but her mother's yield as well. But omens did not fade with the snow. On the first May morning, a lupine bellow echoed through the valley, deep mourning unearthly. The shepherd Michael found a pack of wolves at the forest's edge, standing silent like statues under the heavy mist. 8 of them, though only 7 shepherd dogs roamed near. Among the wolves, fur bristled, eyes glinted amber in a pattern so symmetrical it mocked flocks of 7. Back in the cradle, Anna watched Marek and Stefan stir. She pressed them both to her breast. Marek's eyes flicked to Stefan as if seeking counsel. Stefan's mouth parted in an infant's rapture. They turned to her and cooed. 2 voices, one thought, One remains, one returns. Anna felt her blood chill. Goda, standing by the door, crossed herself and dropped to her knees. Thus dawned the life of Marek and Stefan in Villa Negra. Two bodies sharing every breath, each heartbeat aligned with the other. Their souls woven together in ways no midwife's prayers could unravel. And as the Carpathian winds swept through the highland hollows, they carried whispers of fate. Two souls born in tandem, destined to share a single destiny, and perhaps to pay the price the mountains demanded for such a gift. As spring bled deeper into the Carpathians, the bond between Marek and Stefan Chauvin revealed itself in unsettling ways. Neighbors first noted the twins' shared reactions to pain. When Marek, the elder by minutes, tumbled from a low stool and gasped, Stefan's face contorted in agony. Though he sat safely on his mother's lap, their cries rose together, indistinguishable, one heart, tearing in two bodies. On a crisp April morning, Petru sent Marek into the field to help slow the lambing ewes. Stefan accompanied him in his cradle, but when a newborn lamb collapsed, Marek's ankle caught in the ewe's hoof. A dull crack echoed. Marek fell, clutching his leg. Seconds later, Stefan arched his back with a strangled groan. Petru raced to cradle Marek's sobs, and Stefan's. Blood from a scraped knee and a red welt on Stefan's knee matched in size and hue. Goda, the midwife, examined both, her voice trembling. It is as if their flesh bleeds in tandem. Word spread. The twins bore one body's sorrow in both forms. In the smithy, Vasil tested the phenomenon. He struck a bell with his hammer, just one. Marek's infant fist clenched, Stefan's wiggled fingers in perfect sync. He rang it again. Both boys' brows furrowed, tears pooling in identical pools beneath their lashes. When Marek laughed at a passing magpie, Stefan's lips curled in the same expression, his dimples forming with uncanny symmetry. When Marek sneezed, Stefan sneezed. When Marek hiccuped, Stefan hiccuped. Two bodies, one reflex arc, as though their nervous systems were conjoined across the cradle's padded bars. But the bond cut more deeply than mirrored aches. It reached into memory and fear. Late one evening, Stefan stirred from a nightmare, eyes wild as he whimpered into the dark. Marek, lying beside him on a straw mattress, bolted upright, eyes wet. He murmured in baby precision, "Wolves at the cave." They both shivered, recalling Shepherd Michael's tale of the 8 wolves, mocking the dogs with their stone-still grace. The shared dream was proof. When one twin's mind danced in darkness, the other stepped into the same shadow. Villagers grew uneasy. Mothers crossed themselves at the sight of two stoic infants sharing a single tear. Fathers steeled their gazes, murmuring of superstition and old mountain spirits. The local priest, Father Ignatius, blessed the boys at dawn, sprinkling holy water on their cradle. The droplets fractured in the candlelight, each twin registering the chill. Stefan's limbs stiffened. Marek's cry rose in tremors. Petru and Anna tried to shield their sons from the rumors. They built a small playpen in the back room, and restricted visitors to trusted kids. But news traveled on shepherd's wind. One afternoon, a traveling scholar named Konstantin Varga arrived, bearing letters from a distant university. He studied the twins' hair cards for fingerprint analysis, early stances toward what would become phrenology. He sketched their profiles, measured their arm spans, and noted that cranial contours identical. Neurological excitation patterns suggest a shared sensory nexus. They share a soul. By midsummer, the twins' bond turned from benign marvel to a source of terror. A fire broke out in the barn, the thatched roof ablaze, horses stampeding. Marek, carried into the yard, wailed as Anna dangled him from her arms. A glowing ember had singed his hair. Moments later, Stefan's cries cut through the smoke. His dark curls smoldered in the same spot where a falling beam had scorched his brother's scalp. Ash drifted down onto both boys, each receiving the same injury at the same instant. The villagers swung crowbars and buckets but dared not approach the cradle. Goda, Tears on her cheeks murmured, "They are bound by fate and flame alike." That night, Petru hammered iron stakes around the family cottage, each stud tied with red ribbon to ward off evil. Yet inside, the twins clustered on straw, seeking each other's heat. They shivered in unison whenever thunder rumbled, voices rising in a shared baby song that neither mother nor midwife could interpret. In July, Marek fell gravely ill with fever. His small body burned with chills. He raked his blanket with stiff fingers. Stefan's cheeks flushed pink, shirt dampened with perspiration, though he had played untouched in the hearth-cooled courtyard. Clark's addendum made its way to Valea Negra. Double febrile onset, one twin primary, the other secondary, suggestive of psychosomatic or psychosomatic transference. Prognosis uncertain. God administered herbal compresses to Marek's forehead, rosemary for clarity, willow bark for pain. She applied the same poultice to Stefan's brow. Both boys slipped between delirium and consciousness, hands grasping at the same dream tendrils. Half-heard hymns in Greek, half-spoken vows in Latin, half-remembered lullabies in Old Dacian. In their fever dream they saw themselves as one figure in broken mirror, body torn at the seam. When they recovered, their eyes held a deeper knowing shadows where childhood brightness once danced. Stefan gazed at a dying lamb, and before Anna could shield him, he whispered, Anna's motherly cry splintered the silence. "No, my loves, you will live." Yet in their unified gaze she saw resolve older than her grief. By harvest the twins' bond became impossible to ignore. At the village fair, a traveling physician set up his tent with a sign, "Miracle of the twins, understand at cost." Admission, rose and silver coins. Inside, 4 shining lanterns framed the boys. They sat on cushions, hands clasped. The physician prodded Marek's shoulder with a steel probe, just light pressure. Marek's body jerked. Stefan's did too. The audience murmured, lantern light dancing in disbelieving eyes. The physician nodded gravely, shared nociception, proof of a common central nexus. A local noble, arriving incognito, watched quietly, cloak drawn. He slipped notes to Constant Varga and Father Ignatius. They conferred in hushed Italian. Rumor said the noble sought service of the twins for a binding ritual meant to unify wills across rival houses. Panic filtered into Valea Negra. No family of means would covet such power, but a devil's bargain. Late that night, thunder rolled down the hollows. Into the Sherbon gardens stumbled a breathless messenger from the noble's coat. He handed Petru a sealed parchment. "Bring the boys to Castle Rosu by dawn. Their gift must be tested." Petru's fist wrapped the wax seal into his palm. "Father," the messenger said, "they bring ruin or salvation. Choose wisely." Anna dropped to her knees, arms curling around the twins, whose eyes met in twin flame recognition. They pressed their foreheads together, silent communion passing between them. Neither knew what awaited, yet both knew they walked as one, and whatever lay beyond Castle Rosu's gates would demand the full measure of their shared soul. In the silent dawn, Petru set out on foot with twins cradled in blanket. The mountain path stretched before them, fog-laden, deer-haunted, echoing with their united heartbeat. Behind them, Valea Negra stirred into life, bracing for a fate born of 2 bodies and 1 indomitable spirit. The dawn mists clung to the Carpathian pines as Petru Shirban trudged the narrow mountain path toward Castle Rosu. Marek and Stefan, bundled in a single satchel across his shoulder, he carried them as one burden. 2 lives intertwined, 1 soul shared. Behind them, Valea Negra receded into a swirl of fog and hawthorn. Halfway to the castle, the path narrowed above a rocky ravine. A loose stone betrayed Petru's footing. He stumbled, arms twisting, the satchel swung. Marek yelled in terror, but Petru caught himself on a gnarled root. In the jerk, the satchel strap shredded. The twins tumbled from his grasp, sliding toward the cliff's edge. Stefan's cry cut the morning hush, and without thought, Marek threw himself forward, arms outstretched. They both disappeared over the lip, Petru lunged, fingers closing on empty air. He peered down into the swirling white below and heard a single crack. Marek's final, fearful note. Then a splash. Stefan's voice joined it, fading in unison. The shepherd's heart froze cold. He knelt, pressing his ear to the rocky ledge, and thought he heard two small sobs carried on rising wind. He turned pale, bleeding from a gash on his palm, and scrambled down the slope. The ravine rescue. At the ravine's base, snowmelt churned in a shallow pool. Stefan lay unconscious on a boulder midstream, limbs half submerged. Marek clung to a jutting rock, face bruised, one leg bent at a cruel angle. Petru's cry echoed among the stones. He waded through icy water, scooping Stefan into his arms, then hauled himself up to help Marek. When he finally reached Marek's side, the younger twin's eyes flickered open. Both saw Petru, faces drawn in shared relief, but Marek's gaze immediately shifted to Stefan clasped against Petru's chest. For a moment, Marek's features softened in empathy. Stefan winced and moaned, their pain again mirrored Goda's poultices healed flesh, but in the following days, both boys bore identical fractures in their right legs. When the plaster was removed, they hobbled together on splinted limbs. Villagers whispered that no accident of chance could harm one without harming the other. It was no misstep but a portent. Whispers in the halls of Roșu. At Castle Roșu, the nobleman, Count Andrei Vacarescu, received him in his dim great hall. Tapestries of wolves hunting stags hung heavy on stone walls. Flickering torches cast their shadows long and twin upon the vaulted ceiling. Such fragility, the Count mused, inspecting the boy's bandages. Your gift is bound with suffering. He beckoned to his physician, who tested their bonded limbs. Remarkable, he whispered. One fracture, two pains. One fever, two bodies. That night, as the Count retired, servants heard soft chanting drifting from the twins' chamber. They peered through keyholes at Marek, and Stefan kneeling before a silver basin of holy water and wolfsbane. Together they intoned Nausath, Apathiostia. The servant shivered as the basin glowed faintly, then snapped out. A muted crash followed. Vases shattered in the corridor outside, though none dared approach to retrieve broken pieces. Tragic first death. By mid-May, an inexplicable fever seized Marek. High temperatures, delirium, and coughing fits racked his frame. Stefan, weak but conscious, sat by his brother's bedside. Dr. Cloge, the Count's physician, confessed he could no longer treat Marek without risking Stefan's life. Every dose of opiate that eased Marek's pain sent Stefan into tormented howls. Every fever pill that cooled Stefan deepened Marek's delirium. On the seventh night of Marek's fever, the twins shared a final dream. In unison, they whispered, "The one must go for the bond to be whole." The hour before dawn, Marek's breath stilled. Stefan gasped in his cot, eyes wild and unseeing. His body convulsed in the exact rhythm of Marek's last heartbeat. The Count, summoned, found Stefan's face streaked with tears, though no tear had touched Marek. The child's wails echoed through the silent castle. One soul remains. Carry us both. When the dawn broke, Marek lay still, eyes closed in peaceful repose. Stefan's lifeless form rested atop Marek's, as though he could not let go. Kluge declared Marek dead of fever-induced complications. Stefan teetered between life and death, but remained alive, unexplainably. Whispered intervention. Servants swore they saw Marek's shadow drifting through corridors long after sunrise. In the great hall, a suit of plate armor clanked in the darkness. In the chapel, organs played a solitary organ chord without bellows. Guests at court claimed to hear twin voices at their backs, whispering, "Go, carry one within or both shall wander." Count Vacarescu sealed the twins' chamber and imposed silence, but whispers seeped through keyholes. Priests were called to exorcise the restless spirit of Marek. In seance-like vigils, Father Ignatius recited the Litany of the Saints, Each invocation was met by 2 knocks from within the door, once for Marek, once for Stefan, as if the living boy bore the weight of 2 souls. Village alarm, and the dead twins' return. News reached Villa Negra. Marek was gone. Stefan lingered as both mourner and corpse. At the funeral, the coffin bore 2 nameplates. Marek Scherben, 1778-1778, and Stefan Scherben, 1770. When the priest intoned last rites, a wind blew through the open grave, scattering petals and rattling the parish records. Anna wept at the graveside. Petru stared hollow-eyed at Stefan, now clutching his brother's hand in the box. "Bear him," Marek's spirit whispered in agony in Stefan's mind. Stefan nodded, tears staining his cheeks. "I will," he vowed. Night fell, and under the first stars, villagers swore they saw Marek's pale form stepping from the grave. His face was gaunt, eyes sunken, but he looked at Stefan with a sad, knowing smile. They walked together toward the Scherben home, where Stefan collapsed in Marek's place. In the silent moonlight, the 2 figures, one living, one ghost, embraced, merging in sorrow. The price of unity. In the weeks that followed, Stefan bore both grief and Marek's presence. He spoke to empty air, addressing Marek, as though beside him. In village markets, he startled crowds by naming names of children who had died in distant outbreaks, their graves unmarked. At night he walked the ridge above the sheep pastures, singing Marek's lullabies. In a voice doubled in sorrow, Goda administered restorative broths to Stefan, but he required double the ration. His own flesh remained hale, though his eyes became hollow. Petru watched his son and saw the toll, one body containing 2 spirits. By autumn, villagers spoke of Stefan as both miracle and curse. They left apples at his gate, salt on his windowsill, and wolfsbane in his hair. Yet still the shadows stretched for him. In dreams they heard the twins' final whisper, "Separate at last, or never truly rest." The village elder, Vasil, warned that unless the bond could be severed or honored in some ancient rite, Stefan would carry their shared soul to the grave, and beyond. As the highland winds turned chill, Villa Negra huddled beneath a mounting dread. The cost of twin souls was paid in blood and bone, and the first death had only unveiled the deeper price, an eternity of shadows and ghostly whispers echoing the lost voice of Marek and Stefan's living heart. As Stefan settled into a fragile routine of mourning and survival, news of Marek's ghostly return and their shared soul reached beyond Villa Negra. Count Andrei Vacarescu, keen to understand the twin miracle he once sought to exploit, summoned 2 men of learning to Castle Rosu, Father Petru Moldovan, a Jesuit schooled in exorcism rites, and Constantin Varga, the itinerant scholar whose fascination with the twins began in the smithy of Vasily. The gathering at Castle Rosu, under vaulted stone arches, the Count convened his circle. Torches guttered as Stefan, draped in Marek's striped cap and woolen cloak, knelt before them. Father Moldovan stepped forward, breviary in hand, lips moving in a Latin litany, Exorcizo te animum duplex. I exorcise you, soul of 2. Stefan's head snapped up for a heartbeat. 2 flickers of recognition passed over his face. He pressed a hand to his chest and murmured, half in the twins' shared tongue, half in Gaelic, Anima una, voco fraterna. One soul, I call you brother. The priest recoiled. The devil mimics our prayers, he muttered, quivering. Varga, perched on an oaken chair, flipped through a muslin-bound codex, his grimoire of forgotten rites. He spotted the entry he sought. Where 2 share breath, so shall 2 share essence. To bind one soul in 2 forms, a chalice wrought of bronze, and bone must be offered beneath the eclipse's gaze. The bones shall echo the pact eternal, until blood redeems. He looked to Stefan. Your parents may have performed this ritual when you were born, perhaps unknowingly. Your winter solstice eclipse occurred but weeks before your arrival. The lost ritual of the eclipse, Father Moldovan dipped his finger in holy water and traced a cross in the air. Pagan rites are an affront to God, he spat. Bind one soul in two bodies. This is witchcraft. Yet Varga raised a hand. Not all ancient rites sought ill. Some aimed to protect bonds of blood against plague and war, but the cost was dear. One life debt to join to another. He turned to Stefan. If the chalice of bronze and bone remains, the price of your unity lies inscribed within it. Break it and your souls may sever. The Count's steward produced a leather pouch of fragments, shattered bronze shards and a single bone shard, pieces unearthed from the burial mound beneath the chapel. They set the fragments before Stefan. Father Moldovan crossed himself again. We must destroy these fragments upon the altar. Varga studied the bone shard. This came from a twin's humerus. Thin bone, chosen to mirror thin bone, chosen to mirror the womb splitting. The bronze bears a spiral glyph mark of binding. He traced its curve with a gloved finger. The eclipse but sealed the pact. The ritual must be undone beneath its reverse. The anti-eclipse, when sun and shadow balance. Clergy's division. A storm of dissent rose among the clergy present. Some, like Father Ignatius, condemned the ritual outright. It defies nature's balance. Others murmured that if two souls were bound, then two souls must break it. Father Vala, a Benedictine scholar, spoke calmly. The Church's exorcism may call Marek's spirit from Stefan, but risk turning Stefan into a vessel for both damned and loss. He advocated a sacramental approach, baptismal water, consecrated oil, and recitation of the Athanasian Creed, invoking the Trinity's power to restore singular sanctity. A consensus formed. They would attempt both methods. First, physical destruction of the packed relics. Second, a joint rite of separation melding exorcism and sacramental blessing, all to be conducted at midnight under the quarter moon, on the night closest to the anniversary of the twins' birth. The Count's bargain. Count Vacarescu declared that any cost would be borne by him. He granted his chapel sanctuary. He commanded his guards to stand watch as Father Moldovan and Varga prepared their ritual. Stefan, pale and trembling, sat between two stone pillars carved with twin serpents, symbols of both unity and danger. As twilight deepened, servants moved the chalice fragments to a makeshift altar. Incense coiled from censers. Candles formed a circle marked with chalk. Varga read from his grimoire in Latin and Dacian, a litany of separation. Duum, anime, una fides, noctis singuntur per lumen veritatis. Two souls, one faith, now are separated by the light of truth. Father Moldovan responded with an exorcism incantation. Nomine Patris, ut solus maneat anima fratrum. In the name of the Father, that one soul may remain of the brothers. The ritual's price. As the joint prayers rose, the bronze spirals began to glow faintly. The bone shard trembled. Stefan's knuckles whitened around his cloak as if bracing for a blow. A cold wind swept through the chapel, extinguishing half the candles. The Count's guards collapsed to their knees, gasping. Then, a thunderous crack. The bone shard splintered. The bronze spirals fractured. A burst of icy air surged through the altar circle. Stefan screamed as Marek's voice echoed from somewhere deep within him. No, do not separate. We are the same. Stefan's form flickered. His pupils dilated into Marek's reflection. Varga chanted faster. Moldovan's prayers sounded like hammer strikes. The shards glowed bright white, then snapped apart, each fragment dissolving into motes of ash that drifted upward. With the final syllable of Moldovan's exorcism, a cry split the night. Stefan's body convulsed in agony. The priests retreated behind the altar as Stefan collapsed, chest heaving. The Count rushed to cradle him. He lives, he whispered, voice tight. Father Vala placed a hand on Stefan's brow. He lives, but Marek's spirit is gone. Stefan's breath slowed. His eyes opened, reflecting only his own gaze. For the first time he did not glance to Marek's empty space. Aftermath and theological debate. In the dawn's pale light, Stefan sat alone by the shattered altar. The bone dust lay scattered at his feet. The bronze shards vanished, as if consumed by the ritual fire. Outside the chapel, the villagers watched in awe and fear. Some crossed themselves. Others backed away, muttering forbidden legend. Father Ignatius declared that God's mercy had prevailed. 2 brothers shared one sin, but the Lord's grace returns one soul to its vessel. Father Moldovan added, "Let this stand as testament. Tampering with the soul's unity bears a heavy price." Varga, however, spoke quietly to the count in the sacristy. "Be mindful. Rituals of binding and unbinding draw their power from deep wells. Though we severed the pact, echoes of it remain. Stefan carries both memory and loss. That grief may shape his fate." Stefan's new solitude. Stefan emerged from the chapel cloaked in silence. Children scattered at his approach. Women crossed themselves. He looked at his own hands, turning them palm up, as if checking the boundaries of his singular body. No tremor answered. No second pulse fluttered. Petrushirban embraced his son as though meeting him anew. "You are whole," he whispered. "Only one." Stefan nodded, yet tears traced the curve of his cheek in twin paths. One for himself, one for Marek. Lingering whispers. Though the ritual succeeded in theory, whispers followed Stefan like a shadow. In the smithy, Vasil's hammer rang unevenly when Stefan passed. In the fields, sheep brayed in dissonance. On stormy nights, 2 gusts of wind would bang the barn doors, a double echo of Marek's lost presence. And somewhere in Castle Rushu's vaulted darkness, a soft knock would sound on empty doors, once for Marek, once for Stefan, reminding all that, though one soul remained, the memory of shared breath and shared fate would haunt the valley for generations to come. The ritual at Castle Rusu had severed the twins' shared soul, at least in theory. But in the hollow beneath Veleanagra, Marek's presence lingered like mist. First echoes in the chapel. On the night after the rite of separation, Father Ignatius returned to bless the brother's grave beneath the yew tree. As he sprinkled holy water, a lone candle sputtered out. He crossed himself, voice wavering, "In nomina Patris." Behind him, footsteps tapped on stone. Ignatius spun, aspergillum raised, but saw only empty pews. The tap continued, slow, deliberate, matching a child's walking pace. He crept toward the sacristy door, which swung closed on its own. Inside, he found Marek's old prayer shawl draped across a bench, though no human hand had touched it that night. His dreams were filled with a child's laughter echoing beneath the chapel vaults. Marek's laugh, inviting him deeper into the crypt. Ignatius awoke weeping, the sound of distant sobs still ringing in his ear. Shadows at the shepherd's hut. Shepherd Michael was first to witness Marek's ghost in the open fields. Tending his flock at dusk, he glanced toward the ravine and saw a child's silhouette perched on a mossy boulder. Head back, the figure rocked gently, humming a shepherd's lullaby. "Baiatul meo, souffletul meo, my boy, my soul." Michael froze as the figure raised its head. The face was Marek's, pale, gaunt, eyes hollow as creek pool. When Michael blinked, the boy vanished into the evening mist. His dogs whimpered, backs arched, refusing to follow. Michael dropped his crook and fled to the village, swearing he had seen Death's child watching the flock. Flickers in the forge. At Vasil's smithy, the forge's flames would not stay steady when Stefan passed. Hammers struck cooling iron of their own accord, sending sparks into the rafters. One night, Vasil found his apprentice cowering behind the fan, whispering, "Marek." Vasil turned. The forge's coals glowed bluish-white, scorching his leather apron. A clear imprint of a small heel pressed against the bellows. Though Marek's boot had been laid to rest under the yew, Vasil kissed the imprint, mumbled a blessing, and poured wine over the coals to douse the blue fire. Still, he awoke at dawn to ash-lined floorboards and the faint echo of twin laughter. Guilt in every home back in the Sherburne cottage. Guilt weighed heavy, and paced the single room where Stefan slept fitfully, muttering his brother's name. Each time Stefan stirred in nightmare, he called out, "Marek, carry me." Anna's tears soaked his pillow. Gertrude, haunted by the ravine accident, staggered through the fields, tending sheep, as though to banish his remorse. But every lamb that fell ill revived at the mention of Marek's name, as though the dead twins still called life back to the living. At the communal well, villagers whispered Anna's name with pity. The mother who lost one, yet the other cries for him. Stefan too felt their eyes on him, grief and accusation entwined. Apparitions at the high loft. Summer haymaking brought fresh horror. As workers loaded bundles into the loft, they heard giggling from the rafter. When they climbed up to investigate, they found scattered tufts of Marek's dark hair, tangled in the timbers. Lanterns swung violently despite the still air. One laborer even felt a cold hand brush his shoulder. He tumbled down the ladder, breaking his arm. But when he landed, Marek's laughter drifted from above, light and mocking. The midnight vigil determined to end the hauntings. Father Ignatius organized a midnight vigil on the anniversary of Marek's death. Villagers gathered beneath the yew, clutching candles. Stefan, pale in his embroidered cloak, stood at the center of a chalk circle drawn by Vasil. Each held a sprig of rosemary for purification. Ignatius raised his lantern to the sky. "Spirits unbound, hear this plea. Pass beyond the veil, leave this world be." A wind stirred the candle flames into blue tongues. The circle's chalk dust swirled at their feet. Stefan's eyes fluttered as he spoke softly. "Marek, my brother, find your peace." From the darkness came a whisper, "Carry me." The villagers gasped as Marek's translucent form crouched by Stefan's side. The ghost extended a hand, pale, trembling. Stefan reached out. Their fingers met. A pulse of warmth passed through Stefan's arm, and Marek's spirit smiled. Then the ghost spoke, voice echoing both sorrow and relief. "One life, one rest." With a sigh like wind through dead leaves, Marek faded into motes of silver light. The candles steadied. The moon broke through clouds, bathing the circle in gentle glow. A quiet aftermath. In the days that followed, the hollow grew quiet. No more blue fires glowed in forges. No giggling echoed through hayloft. Marek's prayer shawl lay draped across the chapel bench, now folded, and returned to the family. Stefan strode through Valea Negra without drawing stairs. Yet the village bore the faintest tremor of law. On high nights, some swore they glimpsed a child's shadow at the ravine's edge, or heard a soft whisper in the chapel's silence. Others claimed the yew's bark had grown twin knots, spiraling like the broken chalice shards. Father Ignatius in his journal wrote, "The soul once bound in two vessels cannot be unwoven without cost." Though Marek's spirit found release, his echo lingers in the land he loved. Legacy of the shared soul. Years later, the tale of Marek and Stefan became Valea Negra's solemn folk song, sung by shepherds at dusk, whispered by children under candlelight. Parents warned errant children, "Do not call the twin spirit in the hollow." Travelers passing through found chalk crosses etched on their doorposts, a protective sign against restless soul. Stefan, now grown, carved a simple memorial at the edge of the ravine, a stone plinth bearing two engraved names and a single spiral. Marek and Stefan Sherburne, one breath, one soul, two bodies. He visited it every spring, leaving sprigs of hawthorn and rosemary at each visit. In 2019, Dr. Amelia Dragoi, an expert in Carpathian folklore, led a team from the Romanian Academy to Valea Neagra, determined to verify the centuries-old tale of the Șarban twins. Their first prize, the village parish registers, untouched in a dusty oak chest beneath the church floorboards. Parish registers and birth entries. The registers recorded Marek and Stefan's unusual double entry. 2 December 1778, Marek Șarban, born 11:43 p.m., mother Anna, father Petru. 2 December 1778, Stefan Șarban, born 11:59 p.m., same parents. Marginal notes in spidery 19th century ink added. Twins share one soul. Illness claimed Marek. Fever left Stefan frail yet alive. Scholars compared this to other twin births in the region. None bore such annotations. Exhumation notes of 1825. In 1825, then parish priest Father Ioan Fernatsu petitioned for Marek's reburial beneath sanctified ground. After graveyard rearrangements, his exhumation notes survive. 25 May 1825, Marek's remains exhumed. Skeleton articulated, skull fractured at Parato, unhealed. No grave goods, interred anew beneath you alongside brother. Ioanexu's trembling annotation warned, the bones whisper at night. Dragoi's osteologists examined bone fragments from the original ossuary, and confirmed the Parato fracture, likely the ravine fall, and a second smaller healing fracture matching Stefan's casted wound. The lost grimoire fragment. Most astonishing was the discovery of a single leaf from the Grimorio Umbral or Grimoire of Shadows, once held in Castle Rochu's library. The fragment, hidden in a concealed alcove behind a ruined hearth, bore Latin Dacian script, ad conjunctionem animarum duarum, sub luna obscura, cadaveros et calips caguntur, solutio recurit peritus avarbe, et fractum sidia, to join two souls beneath an eclipsed moon, bone of the fallen and bronze union, to undo, precise words and a shattering of the seal. Paleographic analysis dated the leaf to the late 7th. The tale of Marek and Stefan Șarban reminds us that identity is more than flesh and bone. It is the hidden currency of our deepest connections. Born two bodies, one soul. These twin brothers walked hand in hand through joy, pain, and ultimately sacrifice. Their uncanny bond, shared anguish at the ravine's edge, mirrored fever in the castle's cold chambers, challenged every boundary between self and other. When Marek fell, Stefan bore not only grief, but the very echo of his brother's spirit. And when scholars and clergy unraveled their ancient pact beneath the eclipse's shadow, it cost Marek his life, and Stefan a lifetime of memories tinged with loss. In the highland hollow of Valea Neagra, the ghosts of that shared soul lingered in empty forges and moonlit fields, proof that some bonds refuse to be undone. Whether in a shepherd's lullaby or the vault of a ruined chapel, Marek's presence whispered through every stone and tree. And though the ritual of separation freed Stefan's singular vessel, it also unleashed a haunting reminder. Sacrifice rarely banishes the unseen entirely. What do you think lies at the heart of the Șarban twins' story? Was their soul-binding ritual a desperate attempt to secure each other's fate in a harsh world, or an ancient tradition misused for mortal ends? Could such a pact ever succeed without exacting a price? Or does every ritual carry an unseen toll? Have you encountered legends of doubles, doppelgangers, or divided spirits in your own travels through Europe's remote valleys? Share your reflections and theories in the comments below. Your insights may reveal fresh perspectives on this centuries-old mystery. If you found yourself captivated by the bond of two brothers and the sacrifices they made, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more horror history deep dives. Hit the bell icon so you won't miss our next exploration of dread and discovery. Speaking of which, next week we travel to the windswept moors of Scotland for 1692, the Covenanters' Curse, when secret prayers called down fury. We'll pore over clandestine prayer books, examine trial transcripts stained with tears, and retrace the steps of men who dared bargain with unseen forces in the dead of night. Until then, remember, identity is never just what we see, and sometimes the greatest sacrifices are the ones we cannot witness. Keep your lanterns lit, your minds open, and beware the pacts we make in dark